It was a warm evening in July when I drove up to my parents' house for summer break. After 3 years of college, these visits had fallen into a predictable pattern: Mom's overenthusiastic hugs, Dad's awkward pats on the back, and endless questions about my studies that never quite masked their disinterest. "Maya, honey," Mom called from the porch. "You're just in time for dinner." And guess who's coming over? I didn't need to guess. Jennifer, my older sister, and her husband Tom had made it their habit to drop by whenever I was home. As if they needed to remind everyone of their success story. Sure enough, 2 hours later, we were all seated around the dining table. Mom had pulled out her special occasion tablecloth, the one with the delicate lace trim that only saw daylight when Jennifer visited. "So," Jennifer announced, setting down her fork with that theatrical flair she'd perfected over the years. "Tom and I have been thinking. We should all go to Hawaii for Christmas." Mom literally clapped her hands like an excited schoolgirl. "Oh, that would be wonderful." Dad beamed with pride. "What a fantastic idea, sweetheart." Then Jennifer turned to me, that familiar mocking smile playing on her lips. "Maya, do you think you can afford it? Or should Big Sister help you out?" I felt my cheeks burn, but kept my voice steady. "I can manage my own expenses, thanks." "Are you sure?" Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "Because we're looking at about $3,000 per person for flights and hotel." I almost choked on my water. $3,000. That was more than all my savings combined, and I was only making minimum wage at my part-time jobs. But I'd rather eat ramen for the next 6 months than accept Jennifer's charity. "I said I'll manage," I repeated firmly. Jennifer shrugged and turned back to our parents. "Well, anyway, the restaurant is doing amazing. We just hired a new sous chef from Italy, can you believe it? Authentic Italian cuisine right here in our town." "You're so entrepreneurial, dear," Mom gushed. "Maya, you should really take notes from your sister about business sense." "Yes, Maya," Jennifer chimed in. "Maybe you could even work for me someday." Sitting at that dinner table, watching my parents fawn over Jennifer's Hawaii plans, I felt like I was 10 again. Nothing had changed. The same eager nods from Mom, the same proud smile on Dad's face, the same feeling of being invisible. Jennifer was still their golden child, just as she'd been since we were kids. 5 years between us might as well have been 50 for all the difference it made in how our parents saw us. They never said it outright, but their actions spoke volumes. Jennifer was the one they believed in, the one they were sure would make something of herself. "Hey, remember when Jennifer won the school business competition in 10th grade? Dad would often reminisce. We knew right then she had that entrepreneurial spirit. The funny thing is, they weren't cruel about it. They never deliberately hurt me or put me down. They just forgot I was there sometimes. Like I was a background character in the Jennifer show. They'd remember to ask about my grades or if I needed anything, but their eyes would always drift back to Jennifer, waiting for her next achievement to celebrate. Thank God for Grandpa Joe. He lived in that big old house, the one with the wraparound porch and the creaky swing. He was the only one who seemed to have enough love for both of us. A successful businessman himself, he'd promised early on to pay for both our college educations. When Jennifer left for college, I was 13 at the time, I thought things would change. Finally, I'd get my chance to be the daughter in the spotlight. Boy, was I wrong. Jennifer just called. Mom would burst into my room, practically vibrating with excitement. She's joined the debate team. We should drive up this weekend to see Jennifer, Dad would suggest at breakfast. We can take her some money for expenses. They'd spend hours on Skype with her, the laptop perched on the kitchen counter while they cooked dinner, Jennifer's voice filling our house even in her absence. Meanwhile, I'd slip out the back door and head to Grandpa's house. Those afternoons at Grandpa's became my sanctuary. We had our own little routine that felt more like home than my actual home ever did. We'd settle into his worn leather couch, a tub of mint chocolate chip ice cream between us, and watch old movies on his ancient TV. "You know what's great about Casablanca, Maya," he'd say, pausing the movie. It's not about the obvious hero. It's about the quiet one who does the right thing when nobody's watching. Other days, we'd order a pepperoni pizza and he'd tell me stories about his own childhood while we played chess. He taught me how to fish, too, taking me out on weekends to the lake behind his house. The thing about fishing, he'd say as he helped me bait my hook, is that the best fish aren't always the ones making the biggest splash. Sometimes it's the quiet ones, swimming deep, that turn out to be the most special. I'd sit there in his little fishing boat, watching the sunlight sparkle on the water, and feel like maybe, just maybe, I didn't need to be the favorite to be loved. Grandpa had a way of making me feel seen without making a big production out of it. Want to watch Roman Holiday again? He'd ask after a long day of fishing. I bought those chocolate cookies you like. Those moments weren't grand or flashy like Jennifer's achievements. They were quiet, simple, and real. While my parents were driving across state lines to deliver spending money to Jennifer, I was learning how to play poker with Grandpa using M&Ms as chips. 5 years passed in a blur of family dinners and achievements, all Jennifer's, of course. She graduated college with honors, landed a job at a prestigious firm, and started dating Tom, who my parents immediately declared was perfect for her. Meanwhile, I was preparing for my own college journey. The day I left for college, Grandpa hugged me tighter than he ever had before. His embrace felt different somehow, more urgent, more final. "I love you so much, Maya," he whispered in my ear. "Never forget that." I laughed it off at the time. "Grandpa, you're acting like we'll never see each other again." "I'll be home for Thanksgiving." He just smiled that gentle smile of his and patted my cheek. "Just remember what I said, kiddo." 2 months into my freshman year, Mom called. Her voice was breaking as she told me Grandpa had died in his sleep. The world stopped spinning for a moment. I sat there on my dorm room bed, phone pressed to my ear, unable to process the words. The funeral was on a crisp autumn day. After the service, we all gathered in Grandpa's attorney's office for the reading of the will. Jennifer sat primly in her designer black dress, while I fidgeted in the scratchy department store one I'd bought last minute. To my daughter Sarah, the attorney read, "I leave the sum of $50,000. Mom nodded, squeezing Dad's hand. To my granddaughter Jennifer, "I leave the sum of $300,000. Jennifer's face lit up. She immediately turned to Tom, who'd been hovering by her side throughout the funeral. "Baby, we can have that dream wedding now. And still have enough to start our restaurant." And to my granddaughter Maya, the attorney continued, "I leave my house on Maple Street, including all its contents and the surrounding property." The room went quiet for a moment before Jennifer burst out laughing. "Oh my God, Maya got the old house? That's hilarious." She wiped tears of mirth from her eyes. "Don't worry, sis, maybe you can sell it and buy yourself something nice. Though I doubt anyone would want that creaky old place." Jennifer, Mom scolded half-heartedly, but she was already smiling at her elder daughter's plans. "We'll have the wedding in spring," Jennifer announced, completely taking over the somber moment. "Tom and I already have the perfect business plan for an authentic Italian restaurant. This is exactly the capital we needed." True to her word, Jennifer threw herself into wedding planning. It was a spectacular affair: white doves, ice sculptures, a 5-tier cake, and what felt like half the town in attendance. I stood next to her in a bridesmaid dress she'd chosen, watching her marry Tom in what Mom called the social event of the season. Before the honeymoon tan had even faded, Jennifer and Tom opened their restaurant. They called it Bella Vita, Beautiful Life. The local paper did a feature on them, praising the young entrepreneurs for bringing authentic Italian cuisine to our small town. Mom and Dad framed the article and hung it in their living room. Meanwhile, I tried to figure out what to do with my inheritance. The property taxes weren't insignificant, and maintaining that big old house wouldn't be cheap. After running the numbers one weekend, I thought I'd found a solution. At the next family dinner, I decided to bring it up. "I've been thinking about the house," I said, trying to sound confident as I pushed my green beans around the plate. "Since I'm at college most of the year, I could rent it out. That would help cover the taxes and maintenance." The silence that followed made me look up. Mom and Jennifer were exchanging one of their looks, the kind that had always meant trouble for me growing up. Jennifer's husband Tom suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. "Oh, honey," Mom said in that patronizing tone she reserved for when she thought I was being particularly dense. "Why would you want to rent to strangers when your sister and Tom need a place to live?" I blinked. "What?" Jennifer set down her wine glass with a delicate clink. "Well, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Tom and I could use the extra space, especially now that we're running the restaurant. And obviously, you're not going to charge rent from your own sister. I mean, that would be ridiculous." "Right, Mom?" "Of course it would," Mom agreed immediately. "Family helps family." And just like that, they turned back to their previous conversation about the restaurant's new wine list. Dad nodded along, Jennifer gestured animatedly about some expensive Chianti she'd imported, and Tom finally looked up from his potatoes to join in. I sat there, fork suspended halfway to my mouth, as the reality of what had just happened sank in. I could protest, of course. I could point out that it was my house, my inheritance, my decision. I could remind them that Jennifer and Tom had just gotten a huge sum of money from Grandpa's will, while I got, well, apparently nothing now. But I knew it wouldn't make any difference. They'd look at me with that mixture of disappointment and annoyance they always did when I didn't go along with their plans. Mom would sigh and remind me about family loyalty. Jennifer would make subtle jabs about my selfishness for weeks. Dad would give me that look, the one that said I was making things difficult for no good reason. So I did what I'd always done. I swallowed my protests along with my now cold green beans and stayed quiet. The next weekend, Jennifer and Tom moved into my house. She sent me pictures of how they were updating the place, Grandpa's old leather chair replaced by some modern monstrosity, his beloved fishing photos taken down to make room for framed reviews of their restaurant. While I studied for midterms in my cramped dorm room, my sister and her husband lived rent-free in my house. Every time I came home for breaks, I had to ask permission to visit what was legally my own property. Let's get back to the present. After that summer dinner, I threw myself into work with renewed determination. Between morning shifts at the campus cafe and evening hours at the study library, I barely had time to breathe. But every time I felt like giving up, I'd think about Hawaii and push myself to pick up an extra shift. When Jennifer called in late November, I had the money ready. $3,000, nearly every penny I'd earned over the past few months. "Send it today," she instructed. "I need to finalize the bookings." I transferred the money immediately, my hands shaking with excitement as I clicked send on the banking app. That weekend, I treated myself to a new swimsuit, nothing fancy, just a simple blue one-piece on sale. My friend Lisa let me borrow her good suitcase, the one with the wheels that actually worked. December 23rd arrived crisp and cold. I showed up at my parents' house with my borrowed suitcase and new swimsuit, practically buzzing with excitement. But something felt off. Mom barely met my eyes when she hugged me, and Dad kept clearing his throat the way he did when he was uncomfortable. Then Jennifer and Tom arrived. The moment they walked in, I knew something was wrong. Jennifer had that look on her face, the same one she'd worn when she told me she'd be living in my house rent-free. Mom and Jennifer exchanged glances that made my stomach twist. We sat down to dinner, and for a few minutes, there was only the sound of forks against plates. Then Jennifer set down her wine glass and cleared her throat. "We need to discuss something," she announced. "The restaurant, well, we've hit a rough patch. The numbers aren't what we projected." Mom reached over and squeezed her hand supportively. I noticed she already knew what was coming. "We've had to make some tough decisions," Jennifer continued, her voice dripping with fake regret. "We've had to cut some expenses, including our contribution to the Hawaii trip budget." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "So," she went on, gesturing between herself, Tom, and our parents, "we've all discussed it, and we think the best solution is for Maya to sit this one out." The room started spinning. "But I already paid my share," I managed to say. Yes, well, Jennifer smiled that condescending smile I knew so well. That money will help cover the rest of our expenses. We couldn't possibly cancel on everyone, and Tom and I never even had a proper honeymoon because we went straight into the restaurant business. I looked at Mom and Dad, waiting for them to say something, to object to this insanity. But they just sat there, Mom still patting Jennifer's hand, Dad studying his plate as if it held the secrets of the universe. I paid my share, I said again, my voice shaking. $3,000. That was all my savings. Maya, Mom snapped, her tone sharp enough to make me flinch. Family helps family. Jennifer and Tom are going through a difficult time with the restaurant. The least you can do is be understanding. Understanding? I whispered. Yes, understanding. Besides, someone needs to watch the house while we're gone. Mom turned back to Jennifer. Now, about the hotel arrangements. I stood up so abruptly, my chair scraped against the floor. Nobody even looked up. I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom, the sounds of their cheerful conversation floating up behind me. They continued chatting and laughing as if they hadn't just stolen my money and crushed my dreams. Lying in my childhood bed that night, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Grandpa had helped me stick on the ceiling years ago, I made my decision. The next morning, I played my part perfectly. I stood on the front porch, smiling and waving as they loaded their luggage into 2 waiting taxis. Don't forget to water Mom's plants, Jennifer called out, adjusting her designer sunglasses. And check the mail every day, Mom added. Don't worry about a thing, I assured them, still smiling. Jennifer leaned out the taxi window. I'll send you lots of photos. You know, so you won't feel left out. She laughed as if she'd just made the funniest joke. I kept waving until both taxis disappeared around the corner. Then I walked straight to my car and drove to Grandpa's house, my house. Tom and Jennifer's belongings were everywhere. Her clothes filled the closets Grandpa's suits once occupied. Their pretentious art hung where his fishing photos used to be. Their wedding photos sat on the mantel where Grandpa kept our chess set. I started in the master bedroom, pulling out suitcases and boxes, methodically packing everything. Designer clothes, expensive shoes, Tom's custom-made suits, all of it went into boxes and bags. I found their important documents in Grandpa's old study and packed those too. The moving company charged me triple their usual rate for Christmas Eve service. My next stop was a 24-hour locksmith. He also charged a holiday premium, but I didn't care. I watched with satisfaction as he changed every lock in my house. I drove back to campus, arriving just as my friends were starting their Orphan Christmas celebration, our nickname for the holiday party we threw for students who couldn't or didn't want to go home. Maya, Lisa exclaimed when I walked in. I thought you'd be in Hawaii by now. Change of plans, I said, accepting the cup of hot chocolate she offered. But you know what? I think I'm exactly where I need to be. For a week, my phone buzzed constantly with Jennifer's updates from Hawaii. Each notification felt like a deliberate jab to the ribs. Living our best life, read the caption under a photo of Jennifer and Tom sipping cocktails on the beach. Making memories with the people who matter most accompanied a sunset dinner picture. My Instagram feed became a showcase of their perfect Hawaiian vacation. Jennifer lounging by infinity pools, Mom and Dad smiling at luau's, Tom trying to surf. Every photo was carefully filtered and captioned with nauseating platitudes about family time and much-needed breaks from running a business. The worst was her post about knowing when to step back from work and enjoy life. That one came with a photo of all of them holding champagne glasses at a New Year's Eve party, paid for with my savings. Then, early on New Year's Day, my phone exploded. Maya, why are all of Jennifer's things in our living room? Mom. Call me immediately. Dad. What the hell did you do with our stuff? Jennifer. The locks aren't working. Did you change them? Tom. I watched the messages roll in, my phone buzzing like an angry hornet. This is completely unacceptable. Call us now. Mom. If you don't bring the new keys right now, you'll regret this. Jennifer. Maya Elizabeth Parker, answer your phone this instant, Dad. The messages kept coming, growing increasingly angry. Words like ungrateful, selfish, and spiteful filled my screen. Jennifer's texts became particularly colorful, peppered with accusations about betraying family and ruining their lives. How dare you throw your own sister out on the street? After everything we've done for you? Mom. You're just jealous because we got to go to Hawaii and you didn't. Jennifer. This is the most selfish thing you've ever done, Dad. My phone showed 47 missed calls and over 100 messages by mid-morning. I read each one, letting their words wash over me without response. With each angry message, I felt lighter, freer. They could rage and threaten all they wanted, I wasn't that compliant little girl anymore. I put my phone on silent and went to get breakfast with my friends, leaving their messages unread and their calls unanswered. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel compelled to explain or justify myself to them. By evening, my phone showed over 200 missed calls. The constant buzzing had become white noise, but when Mom's name flashed across my screen for the 201st time, I finally answered. How dare you? Mom's voice exploded through the speaker before I could even say hello. Do you have any idea what you've put your sister through? Maya, Dad's voice joined in from another extension. This behavior is completely unacceptable. I sat cross-legged on my dorm room bed, surprisingly calm. Is it? Like taking my $3,000 and going to Hawaii without me was acceptable? That was different, Mom spluttered. The restaurant. No, I cut her off, my voice steady. Let me talk. For once in my life, just let me talk. Amazingly, they fell silent. You took my money I worked double shifts to earn. You let Jennifer and Tom live in my house rent-free while they ran their restaurant. You've always treated me like I was nothing compared to Jennifer. Always. That's not, Dad started. Remember my high school graduation? You left early because Jennifer called about a job interview. My college acceptance letter? You barely looked at it because Jennifer had just started dating Tom. Every achievement, every milestone in my life has been overshadowed by Jennifer's latest whatever. The words poured out of me, years of hurt and resentment finally finding their voice. And then Hawaii. You didn't just take my money, you laughed about it. Jennifer sent me mocking photos. Do you have any idea how that felt? To know my own family could be so cruel? The silence on the other end stretched out. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice softer, but still defensive. Maya, you have to understand. Jennifer and Tom are really struggling with the restaurant. They need help. And I needed parents who cared about me as much as they cared about Jennifer. I needed a sister who didn't treat me like a doormat. I needed a family who saw me as more than just Jennifer's backup plan. But where will they live? Mom's voice cracked. They can live with you, just like they are now. Or they can rent an apartment like normal adults. My house isn't their safety net anymore. And starting next month, I'm renting it out to actual paying tenants. You can't, Mom began. I can, and I will. I've already talked to a property management company. The lease is being drawn up. I hung up before they could respond. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up with messages from Jennifer. You vindictive witch, read the first one. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy now that you've destroyed our lives. Each message was nastier than the last, a stream of vitriol that would have devastated me a year ago. Now, I just turned off my phone and went to sleep. That was a year ago. I'm in my senior year now, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. Through the family grapevine, I hear things. The restaurant finally went under completely. Jennifer and Tom are still living with our parents, supposedly regrouping before their next venture. Meanwhile, the property management company I hired found excellent tenants for Grandpa's house. The rent they pay covers taxes, with enough left over to build a decent savings account. I'm careful with the money. I think Grandpa would be proud of that. Sometimes, usually late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if we'll ever reconcile. If Mom will ever understand why I did what I did. If Jennifer will ever see me as an equal rather than a convenience. If Dad will ever stand up for me the way he always stood up for her. But then I remember that day in Hawaii when they were all drinking champagne with my money, and I realized something: I don't need their understanding anymore. I don't need their approval or their love or their acceptance. What I need, what I finally have, is my self-respect.